Hi, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you found Michigan Alliance for Families in this video overview of Individualized Education Programs, commonly known as IEPs. We are here to support your desire to increase your understanding of the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. The more you understand how IEPs are developed, the more effective you can be when advocating for a child receiving special education services and programs. We're glad you're here. Michigan Alliance for Families is a statewide organization serving Michigan's families whose children receive special education programs and services, including those that may be eligible but don't receive services yet. We believe that an informed and educated parent can better partner with school personnel to get the best possible educational outcomes for their child. We do this by providing a comprehensive website, sharing information on social media, and offering learning opportunities like this one for parents and those who support them. We also have a monthly e-newsletter that you can sign up for by going to our website. Michigan Alliance for Families' greatest asset is our regional parent mentors and information and referral staff. You can reach the regional parent mentor covering your geographic area by calling our 800 number, 800-552-4821, and by the magic of technology, you'll be routed directly to your parent mentor. Michigan Alliance for Families is funded by grants from the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation, and the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education. All of our services we offer for free, available at absolutely no cost. If you would like a copy of the PowerPoint used in this presentation, please send your request to info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Our intent is to provide you with an overview of the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. During this video, we're going to talk in broad strokes about special education laws and rules, some key concepts that define what the IEP does. We'll also discuss some parts of the IEP, including the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, often referred to as the PLAAFP or present level, goals and objectives, including progress monitoring, and supplementary aids and services, including accommodations and modifications. It's important that you understand how these parts work together to develop your child's individualized education program. Let's start with a brief overview of the laws and rules that govern special education. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is the federal law that governs special education. States can do more than the federal law, but they can't do less. There are many parts to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. Part C contains information about early intervention for children birth to 3 years old, and it provides for coordination of early intervention services within a community. In Michigan, this is known as Early On, and you can check out our Early On video in our video library as well. Part B of IDEA covers special education for students ages 3 to 21. This means students up to age 21 who have exited high school without a diploma. You may have also heard people reference a 504 plan. 504 plans are a result of a different federal law called the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The Rehab Act is a civil rights law, and Section 504 protects qualified individuals from discrimination based on their disability. There are times a student with a disability does not qualify for special education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. However, their protections under Section 504 can address issues related to access to education. What's key to know here is that 504 plans are related to a different law than the ones for Individualized Education Programs, or IEPs. Michigan Mandatory Special Education is a state law that provides for special education starting at birth for babies and toddlers who qualify. Special education is coordinated with Early On services. Michigan law also extends special education to age 26 for students who exit high school without a diploma. That's one example of how a state can do more than the federal law, but cannot do less. The Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education, or MARS, are the rules that specify how the federal and state special education laws will be implemented in Michigan. Michigan Alliance for Families website has more information on both federal and state laws and rules that govern special education. Please feel free to take a look and do a deeper dive for more information. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has two key building blocks. The first one is free appropriate public education, referred to as FAPE. The key to understanding FAPE is in its name. Free, meaning at no cost. Appropriate, personalized to meet the student's unique needs. Public, having a right to receive a public education. An education that prepares all children for a future including post-secondary education, employment, and independent living. It's through the development of an individualized education program that FAPE is determined. The second building block provided by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is Least Restrictive Environment, or LRE. It is crucial that an IEP be developed to provide a student with the opportunity to be educated with children who are not disabled to the greatest extent possible. It is through the development of the IEP that LRE is determined. I just said educated with students who are not disabled. Let's take a minute to talk about what areas of school life are considered in that education. It's important to consider 3 areas in school life that IEPs cover to ensure the child with a disability is successful. These are academic, non-academic, and extracurricular activities. Academics is the information being taught in the classroom. This may be the first thing you thought of when I said educated. This would be reading, spelling, math, science, and social studies. This is often a parent's top concern. We want our sons or daughters to be successful. We want to know they're learning, and we want to know what's being taught in class. An IEP is written to ensure a child's success in the general education curriculum. Next, let's think about non-academic activities. And yes, there are non-academic times throughout the school day. These activities include recess, lunch, getting to school on the bus, getting home from school on the bus, passing in the hallway, and field trips. Non-academic times are often the least structured times of the day. An IEP can include ensuring success during these non-academic times and these activities. Extracurricular activities typically happen after school, are sponsored by the school, and usually have a school employee running those activities. Think about high school and the clubs that happen after school. Things like theater, yearbook, photography, and debate club. People go to an after-school activity because it's an area of interest. When you show up for theater club, you find people that share a common interest. Common interests are where friendships begin. An IEP can include ensuring success during extracurricular activities. As we continue through the rest of this presentation, I want you to remember that IEPs are written to ensure success in these 3 areas: academic, non-academic, and extracurricular. There are many components to the IEP. Today I'll be covering what we at Michigan Alliance for Families call the 4 cornerstones of the IEP. It's our experience that if we can help you understand these 4 cornerstones and how they fit together, then you'll begin to understand how to address the other components. We use the IEP process to show how these 4 cornerstones work together to determine what a free, appropriate public education and least restrictive environment are for each individual student. To start, I'm going to give you an overall look at the IEP process, and then we'll spend a little bit of time on each of these 4 cornerstones. It all starts with the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, or PLAAFP, or present level. This is where we identify the student's needs. This is the foundation the rest of the IEP will be written from. Once we've identified the student's needs, we ask the question, what skills or behavior the student needs to learn? Goals and objectives identify what skills or behavior your son or daughter will learn. Once we've identified the student's needs and what skill or behavior they need to learn, we can address the issue of access. Accommodations and modifications are all about access to the building, to the curriculum, to the bus, to extracurricular activities. How do we ensure access? Once we've identified the student's needs, have the goals and objectives to develop skills or behavior, and identified accommodations and modifications in order to ensure access, then we get to the part of the IEP where we are determining programs and services that are needed to implement the IEP. Who is going to teach the goals and objectives? Who is going to make sure the accommodations and modifications are done across the school day, including extracurriculars and non-academic activities? It is this process that we use to determine a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. Let's dive into the first cornerstone, present level of academic achievement and functional performance. It's the foundation of the rest of the IEP. This statement includes 2 broad types of information: academic achievement, how the student is doing learning the classroom material, and functional performance. Parents often wonder what is meant by functional performance. Functional performance is how the student engages in the routine activities of the school day, including communication, mobility, behavior skills, social skills, and daily living skills. A well-written present level addresses your child's needs related to academic achievement and functional performance. A well-written present level of academic achievement and functional performance, or PLAAFP statement, includes your child's strengths and weaknesses, what helps them learn, what interferes with learning, objective data from current evaluations, and how your child's disability affects his or her ability to be involved in and make progress in the general education curriculum, extracurricular activities, and non-academic activities. The present level statement is the foundation that the rest of the IEP will be built upon. This is the place where parents have a lot of information to contribute to the IEP. As parents, we know our child's strengths and we know their weaknesses. Things that we do in our families simply to make things go smoothly. We know how to help our kids transition off watching TV to come to dinner. We know how to successfully help our children be ready when it's time to leave the house. We know what helps our children concentrate and be able to do their best. We need to be able to take those things that we know about our children and how we support them at home and apply them to what happens at school. Remember, the present level statement is the foundation of the other parts of the IEP. This current picture will be used to identify what skills or behavior your child needs to learn, the goals and objectives, and what helps or interferes with learning may lead to accommodations or modifications. The present level statement needs to include data. The data in the present level statement identifies your child's current level of success with the skills or behaviors, meaning where your child is at right now. This is called baseline data. When we have baseline data, we can track our child's progress towards their goals and objectives. Going back to the overall IEP process, I started with information about the PLAAFP statement, strengths, weaknesses, what helps learning, what interferes with learning, objective data, including baseline data, and taking into consideration the general education curriculum, extracurricular, and non-academic activities. This information guides the next cornerstone, goals and objectives. What skill or behavior does your child need to learn? We use the words goals and objectives like they're the same thing. They're not the same. Goals are overarching skills we want the student to learn. Objectives are the skills or steps the student needs to learn or achieve the goal, the steps along the way. There are many different ways to look at goals and objectives. This is one way to begin looking at goals and objectives by looking to see if you can answer these questions. Who will achieve the goal? This is your son or daughter, the student the Individualized Education Program is written for. What skill or behavior? This would be the skill or behavior that someone is going to teach your child that your child is going to learn. Does it define it? Do you know what it looks like? How? In what manner or at what level? Think of how it will be measured, and would anyone reading the goal be able to understand the information? Do we know what the target is? Do we know what the outcome expected to achieve is? Where? In what setting or under what conditions? A setting can mean a place, such as individual therapy sessions or in a classroom, or it might be a condition. It might be using assistive technology or when frustrated or upon entering the classroom. When or by what time? An IEP is written for one calendar year. So if the last IEP was written in October, then it's from October to October. If it's written in April, then it's from April to April. Some IEPs will have dates following the individual objectives, the steps to meet the goal. For example, by November, the student will. By January, the student will. These questions are one way to think about what goals should do. The questions are about the mechanics of how the goals and objectives are written. Another way to look at goals allows you to talk about the content. Here we're looking at specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and timely goals and objectives. Specific means only one skill or behavior, that we all know what we're looking at and we know what the target is, what that specific skill or behavior is. Measurable means the objective is stated in a way that your child's progress can be measured. You have to be able to see it to count it. If you can count it, then you can measure it and you can see if the child is making progress. Achievable means that we have a point where the skill or behavior is mastered, that the objective is realistic to your child. Results-oriented means action. Action your child will do to accomplish the goal. And timely means that it's in a time frame that your child will achieve it with the right supports and services. Again, typically for the annual goal, it's that calendar year, and the objectives are the steps throughout the year. Earlier, I referred to baseline data. Baseline data is a measurement that's collected before teaching a new skill or behavior. It can be collected through various measures, including percent accuracy, frequency, how often it happens, duration, how long it happens, speed, at what rate, intervals, another way to look at how often it happens. The present level statement needs to include baseline data. Baseline data is the starting point. In this example, the baseline is 20%. Within the objective, there needs to be a level expected to achieve. The point where your child has consistently demonstrated the skill or behavior is mastered, the target. In this example, it's 90%. Once you have baseline data and level expected to achieve, you can put that information on a graph like this one. Drawing a line from the baseline to the level expected to achieve gives us a trend line. This trend line shows you the progress your child needs to achieve across time. In this example, in January, the child should be achieving 40%, and by April, 65%. And then in September, we hit that 90%. When you have both pieces of information, the baseline and the level expected to achieve, you're in the best position to monitor your child's progress. In the present level statement, we identify the student's needs. In writing the goals and objectives, we identify what skills or behavior the student needs to learn. Next, we turn to issues of guaranteeing access. The third cornerstone of the IEP process is part of supplementary aids and services. It's accommodations and modifications. Concerns about accommodations and modifications are common questions we receive from parents. The present level statement identifies your child's needs. The accommodations and modifications are identified to address those needs, to ensure access. Accommodations or modifications are put into place based on when the nature of the disability is such that the need would not be addressed by teaching a skill or behavior. A goal is not appropriate. It's about removing the hurdles caused by the disability. Supplementary aids are all about access for the student and removing those hurdles to their participation in general education, non-academic, and extracurricular activities caused by their disability. Accommodations are adaptations or changes to the educational environment or practices that help the student overcome the barriers presented by their disability. Modifications are adaptations that change what the student learns and are used when the students require more support or adjustments than accommodations can provide. Whereas accommodations level the playing field, modifications change the playing field. Another type of supplementary aid is support to school personnel, families, or a liaison. This could be providing assistance, consultation, or training to adults who support the student, or requiring the coordination of activities to address a specific need. It is important to begin to understand what is being done when accommodations or modifications are put in place. When considering accommodations or modifications for an individual student, we look at changing something based on that individual student's needs. We might change scheduling. An example of this could be based on factors related to alertness and fatigue. If based on the disability, a student becomes more fatigued as the day progresses, we would look at establishing a class schedule that puts academic courses in the morning. Setting. This could be based on factors related to distractibility. If it's been demonstrated that taking a test in a distraction-free environment increases the quality and quantity of answers, then we could look to have the student take tests in a room other than the classroom. Materials. An example of this could be Braille textbooks. Another example could be for students who are reading below grade level having access to audiobooks so they can listen to the book being read to them. Instruction. This involves changing the way a student accesses learning. An example of this could be based on a student's cognitive abilities. A student could access high-interest, low reading level books. These kinds of textbooks cover the same material being taught in class, but at a lower reading level and may use more examples and stories to help the student understand more complex topics. Student response. An example of this could be using technology to type answers that other students are writing by hand, or a student answering verbally and recording their answers that other students are writing by hand. An additional example could be a student who takes multiple choice tests while their students are taking true-false tests. Accommodations provide support that allows students with disabilities to achieve the same instructional goals as students without disabilities, allowing for changes in setting, materials, instruction, and student response. It's important to note that accommodations do not change the expectations for learning. They do not change what the student is required to learn. Remember, modifications change what the student learns and are used with students who require more support or adjustment than an accommodation can provide. Modifications do change the expectation for learning. They do change what the student is required to learn. A high school student who has many modifications to the learner expectations may be on track to leave high school without a diploma. The high school environment has a lot to offer students who will be exiting high school without a diploma. Modifications can be used to support a student's learning in the general education curriculum, even if they are not receiving credit or getting a diploma. In the present level statement, we identified the student's needs. In writing the goals and objectives, we identify what skill or behavior the student needs to learn. To deal with issues of guaranteeing access, accommodations or modifications are put into place, which brings us to Cornerstone 4, Special Education Programs and Services. Special education is not a place. It's a set of services provided to a student through an IEP and are designed to help a student reach their goals, make progress in the general education curriculum, participate in extracurricular and non-academic activities, and to be educated and participate with children without disabilities. When it comes to programs and services, we're answering questions related to who. Who is going to work on developing the skills or behavior? Who is going to assure that accommodations and modifications will be put into place? And we identify how much time will the service be provided and how often. Where will the service be provided? For how long? These answers are documented in the IEP near the end of the document. This is a list of common related services. It is definitely not limited to just these services. Once the IEP team has decided what services your child needs, decisions must be made about where the services will be provided. Where your child's IEP is carried out is called placement. As the parent, you have the right to be a part of the group that decides your child's placement. In deciding your child's placement, the group must make sure that your child has the maximum opportunity appropriate to learn with children who do not have disabilities in academic, non-academic, and extracurricular activities. This brings us to the end of this overview of the IEP process using the 4 cornerstones: present level of academic achievement and functional performance, where the student needs are identified. From there, goals and objectives identified what skill or behavior a student needs to learn, using accommodations and modifications to address issues of access, and the final cornerstone, determining special education programs and services needed to implement the IEP. The cornerstones come together as parts of the Individualized Education Program developed to offer free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. When we learn new information, it can be a challenge to know what to do next. I encourage you to start by reviewing your child's current IEP. Reach out to your regional parent mentor for more information or to talk about your questions. You can reach your regional parent mentor covering your geographic area by calling 800-552-4821. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected. Our upcoming events page on our website will let you know about additional learning opportunities. Also, check out our videos available when you need them on our YouTube channel or access them from our website. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this information was helpful. If you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, please send your request to info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Have a great day. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs.